March breakfast meeting of the European Business Network, EBN. For those who don't know me, my name is Peter McIver. I'm the ambassador of Ireland here in Vilnius. I'm taking the floor this morning because Ireland has taken over the chair of the EBN for the 4-month period from March to June 2021. Anyway, in the first instance, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the outgoing chair, Cosmin Dănescu, the ambassador of Romania, for his excellent stewardship of the Council of the EBN during his period as chair up until the end of February. Of course, there have also been changes to the board of the EBN since the last breakfast meeting. We were very sorry to hear in February that Gintaras Gavenas had decided to step down as managing director of the EBN from early March, and I welcome him back now in his capacity as a member of the EBN to this meeting. Of course, I'm very, very happy to thank Gintaras for his outstanding contribution over the years to the European Business Network, for which we are all certainly most grateful. However, we're also delighted that Peter Quintus has now taken over as managing director. We wish you, Peter, every success in your new position, particularly as you're taking over at a time when the COVID-19 pandemic restrictions have necessarily limited the activities of the EBN, including our one of the most important activities that we have, which is networking among each other. Real challenges as to how we can best manage the work of the EBN moving forward have been presented to us, and we look forward to creative solutions from the board and indeed from the council as to the best way forward. Peter will be helped in this task by 3 new members of the board. I just name check them briefly. Ekaterina Yokaya, who will be the deputy director of the board, as well as Angela Kuntsevits and Rim Gaudas Pasniakis, to whom I have just said hello online. Again, we wish them all, together with the treasurer, Diva Casper, all the best as they take up their duties within our network. And finally, I'm delighted to say that we also have 2 new members of the EBN. I want to pronounce their names properly, but I'm not sure whether I'll be fully able to do so. The first is Christina Tipkuviena of UAB Tesis Riva. And this is a company specializing in real estate law, land law, commercial law, construction law, road traffic law, and other areas of business law. The second new member is Laura Alvanye of the MB Global World Consulting Agency, with an operational name Kokivas Lubas. MB Global World Consulting is an agency which specializes.
Tai tada reiškia, žinai, tada, jeigu tas, nu kaip, ar matai, kad...
Sorry, shall I continue? I'll just be brief.
Yes.
Just to say that MB Global World Consulting is an agency which specializes in international projects. It helps companies from all over the world to enter the Lithuanian market. It conducts market research and analysis, provides assistance with the European Commission funded programs and measures, and helps companies to participate in public procurement. In any case, we are very glad to welcome Christina and Laura to the European Business Network. So, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes my short introductory statement. We move on to the main business of the online breakfast meeting this morning, which is a presentation by Mr. Arūnas Pranevičius on the impact of COVID on the real estate market in 2020 and 2021. And as I understand, Peter Quintus is going to introduce Arūnas. So, Peter, the floor is yours.
Well, actually, you did already introduce our main speaker. So yes, without further ado, Arūnas, please, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. So I will share my screen. So good morning again, and I'm Arūnas Pranevičius, the owner of Capital Smart and Capital Commercial companies. I work in the real estate market 14 years already, and yeah, last year we saw some changes in the market. Some people were expecting maybe more changes in that market, but as we saw later, there was some different situation than many people thought it would have. So what the main word that is compared to the real estate market and to maybe the whole market last year, it was Corona, and when it happened on the second quarter of 2020, there was quite unknown situation for most of Lithuanians, but not only Lithuanians, for all the citizens, all the people in the world. And for example, in Lithuania, we saw many reports in all the media channels that there should be the drop of the prices, that nobody should buy the property, that everything will stop and we will see the crash as we saw in 2008. And there was really many experts that had to say about real estate markets, but actually what we saw later in that summer and in the third and especially on the fourth quarter of 2020, real estate market had its golden age. We saw some record-breaking months in real estate market, especially in residential market. And I want to explain a little bit why it happened and what we saw more. As a brokerage, we saw that in Vilnius last year we saw 6% increase of the prices, and in Lithuania we saw 7%. If we compare to the northern and Baltic countries, in most of them we saw the same situation, but in Estonia and Latvia we saw that the prices decreased because of coronavirus, but it's not because straight effect of coronavirus. It was more that the salaries stopped increasing in Estonia and Latvia, and in Lithuania we saw that the average salary increased about 10%. I will show it later. And what else we saw in our market last year, that if we compare nominal price index and the actual price index, which is after elimination of inflation, we saw that the prices are quite stable for last few years, but the inflation rate was the main reason the people saw that it's better to invest in real estate, which is quite safe investment. And for Lithuanians, actually, investing in real estate from many years ago is the most safe and easiest way to invest money. And that is from all the historical data, Lithuanians compared to the other European Union countries, we have most of real estate as an ownership, and we have rental market much not slower, but much sorry, I forgot the word. It's the first time for me when I do this report in English, so sorry for that. But we are ready to buy real estate, not to rent. It's in Lithuanian mind all the time. And for example, last month we saw that prices started increasing much more than it was in 2020. So if we compare February of 2020 and February of 2021, we see that the prices increased 5%, and we see that the lowest point is calculated from 2010, when after the economic crisis, the prices reached the lowest heights in 2010. So from that point, we see that the prices increased for 38%. Why it happened? It happened because more and more Lithuanians and people from other countries started coming to Lithuania, and for the first time since independence, we saw that much more people were coming back to Lithuania than they were going out. Why it happened? I think there was also the effect of COVID-19, because people in other countries, Lithuanians in other countries, they lost their jobs, they felt insecure, the flights were stopped, and people, because there was no information, nobody knew what going to happen later. They started coming back to their previous home, to Lithuania, and last year we saw that 20,000 people more came back to Lithuania if we compare the balance of people going out and people coming back. That's really important number. What else? Real estate affordability index is calculated of the price per square meter and the average salary, and it you could calculate how many square meters you could buy in with your average salary. So it's getting better. If that affordability index is coming closer to 100, it's a much better situation to buy the property. And last year, in all the major cities of Lithuania, that index were coming closer to 100. Then, liquidity ratio. It meant how quickly construction companies sell their residential apartments in the real estate market. So we saw that last year, and we saw that we could see that on the second quarter of 2020, it went a little bit up, but later it went down. So for construction companies, it started to get much more easily to sell apartments which are not finished yet. That graphic maybe I like the most, that what is the amount of supply in the finished residential projects, and we saw that in Vilnius that ratio is going down. It was going down for the last 2 years. I remember in 2017, 2018, there were many talks, also in all the media channels, that construction companies are building too many projects. There are too many apartments unsold in the market. What we see now, that graphic, that content is ends in with the end of last year, and what we see now, you can't find apartments in the project that is already finished, or you could see only few of them. So it means that construction companies, when they present their project, they have many reservations. For example, in many projects in Vilnius area near the center, when the construction company, well, the developer reaches parking level or the ground floor level of the house, 70 or 80% of the apartments are already sold. So it means that those projects that will be finished in the year of 2022, they will be totally sold out. That is not the good news for the buyers, but that is good news. That are good news for the developers in Vilnius. What we saw in, for example, in Klaipėda, and in Kaunas, we saw that supply increased at the end of the year, because in those cities the amount of sales are a little bit lower, and few bigger projects were introduced in the middle of 2020. Ranges of options, so that that graphic also shows how many available apartments we could see, and how many apartments are already sold, and we could see that by this graphic that the same, that there are only few options in the houses that are already finished, and for today it's quite a big problem. By this paragraph also, as I told you, that during last few years there was on the blue blue color, we see how many, what amount of apartments were offered to the market, and the red paragraph shows how many apartments were reserved and sold. And we saw that we could see that in 2020, at the end of 2019 was more or less the first years where more apartments were sold than they were offered. Of course, all the economists talk about V-line graph in the economics in real estate markets, and we could see that in second quarter of 2020, sales dropped dramatically, but the third quarter it got back, and fourth quarter the market ate everything developers offered. So this one paragraph I like the most. Sorry, just got it only yesterday, so I can show. But here we could see how the market reacted on the first lockdown and how it reacted on the second lockdown. So we can see that on the second lockdown there was no impact of COVID-19. Sales in newly constructed houses reach the records of 13 years. And what we saw later in February, it also reached the new record. So people started buying real estate, started investing, and started searching for the new home. The impact of the COVID-19 had most to the house market. We saw that individual or attached houses, detached houses, had more popularity for Lithuanians. Here we took Vilnius situation, and we saw that people were selling their apartments, their flats, and they were started to buy houses, small houses with small land plots, where they saw that it's better to spend the days of lockdown in the house, not in the apartment. Also, there was increasing numbers in the land deals in Vilnius, also in Lithuania. That increase was much bigger. But in Vilnius, we saw that, especially in Vilnius region, the sales of the land, they started to increase. It started the increase from the first day of lockdown. It was the first, by myself, I work as a broker. I saw that people stopped calling for the apartments. They stopped calling for the houses in the month of March of 2020, but people started calling and show their interest in the land plot. And it's not strange that the sales increased till the end of the year. Also, the size of average apartments in Vilnius we saw that also started a little bit increasing a little bit because the people who spend their days at home, they saw that their apartment now is school, kindergarten, office, and the place where they spend 95% of all their time, and they saw that it's not enough just to have really compact apartments of 20 or 30 square meters that were very popular 1 year ago. Now people saw that it should be a little bit bigger. You should have more comfort, and the developers, they changed their projects that were already that they already finished the project works, but they changed the plans, the layout, and they increased the average size. But the average size of houses decreased, and it's decreasing more because people are not willing to buy big houses. For example, like 150 or 200 square meters. Now they are searching for 80 square meters, 90 square meters houses, which has 3-4 rooms. It means 2-3 bedrooms, and for them it's enough of the space of the bedrooms, and it's because of the price of the house. Because, for example, 95 square meters house could cost for the people around 100 and 110,000 euros without interior, but the house of 200 square meters, it would cost at least 200,000 euros. But as I showed you that in residential market, especially in Vilnius, we have a really good situation for the sellers, for the developers, but maybe not the best situation for the buyers, because there are not a big supply from the market. In commercial real estate market, we see, and we still see that the situation is not good. And if we compare turnover for sales in residential and non-residential market, we see that in residential market we saw the increase, and in non-residential market we saw the decrease. We saw much less of the deals, and especially in commercial real estate deals, because non-residential also includes some property, some called apartments, which are not legal apartments in the documents. And in commercial real estate deals, we saw that there was a decrease of 25%. That number, most of that number, of 345 million euros, was impacted by the first quarter of 2020, when we saw some really big deals, but in the summertime, in the autumn, we saw that it's really problematic, and there are two big difference between buyers and sellers, because everybody calculates and has their numbers. And as I told you, we have the company Capital Commercial. There was many deals that were cancelled by the buyer or by the seller, because sometimes buyer see that the situation, for example, people are buying the office building, and we see that the numbers of income from the rent dropped, and they recalculate that the price of that building should be much lower. On the other hand, the buyers sometimes they cancel the deal because they see that they are not having many other options where to invest those money. They see many talks about the inflation in the European Union and in Lithuania, and they decide not to sell that, for example, building, and just to keep it because they have no idea what to do with that money. What we saw in hotel market, there was also the accommodation levels decreased dramatically. We saw that many hotels in Vilnius were for sale. There was not a good time for them. Of course, I guess we all know why. And the availability of modern offices in Lithuania increased because developers they didn't stop the construction of the offices of the commercial real estate. For example, in the next slide, in Vilnius, this year are going to be record year because developers are going to offer almost 140,000 square meters of the offices only in Vilnius. When we saw last year that many companies they decide to decrease their needs, they started moving from, for example, 500 square meters to maybe 300 square meters because they have many employees that work from home. They decided to cut their spending, but developers they will offer a huge amount. What it means? It means for the tenants, for the companies, that they could negotiate more this year. They could feel more comfortable in negotiations, and they will have a lot of offices where they could put their company and get much better price. Because, for example, in 2019, there was a really big problem. Almost all the offices, especially A or A plus class offices, were rented, and the the rate of available square meters of available space were really low. Then unemployment rate in Lithuania increased, and now it's around 17%. Of course, that unemployment rate has many discussions from the politics, from the economists, that it doesn't show the true amount of unemployed people, because many of them just want to get some payments from the government, but still it increased last year, and it's still increasing this year. The biggest problem I see is that the people from 25 up to 30 that worked in hotels and restaurants, in coffee shops, they were in that unemployment rate, and that people will be the buyers in the near future, and for them it will be much more difficult to buy real estate in the previous few years, especially when we saw that the prices in the residential market increased. Of course, the GDP rate in the European Union went down. Only we could be happy that in Lithuania we saw much lower, much less of a decrease of GDP. It got back to the same numbers, but if we look to the history, GDP rate is really connected to the real estate prices, but the phenomenon of the last year was that GDP rate decreased, but the prices in European Union countries started increasing. And to sum up, I would like to say that real estate market is not only about real estate. It's more about people and the expectations of that people. If people would expect for the prices to increase in the near future, they will buy real estate to be safe that it won't cost much more in the previous few months. If people would expect that economy would collapse, they won't buy anything and they will just wait. And of course, it won't be good for the real estate market. It's the same for the commercial and residential real estate. But in the last few surveys, we see that expectation of Lithuanians for this year is that the prices will increase, but that increase would be around 5%. So expectations are quite good. The market is really active. There are a lot of buyers. And for example, last week we have some Facebook group in our company where we put the newest closed deals, and 70% of new deals were closed after the auction. So it means that there are a lot of properties that have 2, 3, or even more buyers at the same time that want to buy, and then it means that the price increased. So maybe that really shows that there are really low supply in today's market, especially in residential real estate. And what we see as a brokerage company, that this year, till the end of this year, we will see the increasing prices in real estate, because as we see, there are no big new projects where you could buy the apartment, get the keys, and start all the works inside. So it means that you could move in this summer. We see that you could only reserve the apartment in the project that will be finished next year, or even at 2023. That's maybe the problematic, because it could we could see that the prices will increase much more than we expect. So that's it for me. Just wanted to show a little bit what's happening in the real estate market, and maybe you have your questions.
Oh, we see immediately hands. Okay, Kestutis, please.
Yes, thank you. What are the trends since COVID outbreak for rental prices for offices and for living? Thank you.
For offices, the prices decreased. We saw in the commercial offices market the decrease of the prices, and we saw that some offices that are in older buildings that need that it's called B class or less, but there was a really difficult situation. It was really difficult to find new tenants, and the prices decreased 10–15% at least. For the apartments, for rental market in residential real estate, we saw that prices a little bit decreased in April and May, but later in June, July, August, the prices got back to the previous numbers, and to previous numbers until the end of the year. We thought about 5% of increase in rental market.
Okay, Ekaterina, please.
Thank you.
Thanks, Arūnas, a lot. I actually have a question regarding the different sectors on the real estate, because as far as I understand, we have the big winner, pretty much single-family houses, right?
Yes.
But all the other sectors are not so lucky because of the pandemic. They were not so supportive by the hoarding tendencies or this fear or panic regarding the social distance, etc., etc. So, do you expect a shift from the office space towards the residential housing? And what are the trends in the industrial real estate and other sets of commercial real estate?
Industrial real estate, for example, we saw some good examples last year where international companies bought some land plots to build the factories near Kaunas, near Vilnius, near Pranevičius. What's the good factor that we saw those factories near the smaller cities? That is really good for those smaller cities because people will get offers of many jobs in those factories. But for the hotels, for the restaurants, for the offices, this year would be really difficult. Last year it was difficult. This year it will be really difficult. The numbers, for example, of the rent prices should change much more in offices this year, because I showed you a lot of new offices will be finished, but we saw that the companies, they decided to decrease the size of their offices. But on the other hand, we see that people, at first we talked how good for them is to work from home, to have the office from home. But later, people changed their mind and they said, oh my God, let me go to the office again, and I can't work from the home. So I think the average, the companies won't change their offices to the smaller ones dramatically. Maybe only the companies that I don't know. I don't want to tell exactly, but in my opinion, maybe IT companies could change, that people would work more from home. But most of the companies, they will come back to the office. But it's good for those companies to negotiate with the owners of the buildings where they rent those offices to get a lower price.
Thanks a lot. It's a great aspect because, in our company, we actually identified roughly about 10 to 15% people really wanting to not to get back to the office, to work from the home. It would be interesting to ask other members what are their experiences on that aspect too.
So please raise your hand if you have some questions or want to comment on Ekaterina's question.
Also, some companies saw that the efficiency of the work dropped down, decreased, because some people can work from home, but we know that some can't. There will be that companies will require to get back, and there will be some people that would want to come back to the office.
Any more questions? I see a hand. Okay. Paulus, please.
Hello, everyone. Paulus here. Thank you for a nice presentation, Arūnas. Just a follow-up question. I've heard a lot of things that about residential property. My question is not about commercial, about residential. A lot of things that the sellers are trying to sell their property for inadequate prices, for higher than the market prices. They see that a lot of people fear inflation or some other things which might or might not occur, and they want, to put their money not to have cash but to have some property. So what do you think will happen at the end of the year or in the beginning of next year? Do you think that the prices will still rise, or do you think that we will see some kind of a crash here and we will see a lot of cheap properties on the sale, or still it will be very, very high prices? What is your vision, or yeah, what do you think?
Okay, so thank you for the question. What I see that yes, today expectations of the sellers are really, really high. We see some I don't know how to tell, but some sellers want to get normal prices for their property. So that is our work as brokers to tell people what they could really get in today's market. Because there are some people that would like to get 4,000 euros per square meter in the region, in the 10 kilometers from the city center, so which is really impossible. People are buying a lot, but everybody is calculating, and it's not buying for any price the market offers. So those sellers they just keep trying, but nobody will buy the property for the insane prices. But there are a lot of those sellers. For the some expectations for the market, we see that now a lot of the developers are presenting new projects in Vilnius, which will be for sale maybe at the end of this summer, or maybe on the fourth quarter of this year. And that new supply, bigger supply, should stabilize the prices of real estate. It should increase until the end of this year, but later it should stabilize, because there are a lot of apartments that are coming the next year or the year after. But for this time, I would like to detach Vilnius from the Lithuania market, because last year we saw that in Vilnius there was 10,000 new residents in Vilnius. It was also the record, and more and more people from smaller cities of Lithuania. Now we see many people from Belarus coming, from Ukraine coming to Vilnius, and that market should be at least stabilized. We don't see any crash of the market, but of course it's just like expectations. What will happen, we don't know, because nobody knew that coronavirus is coming. So what will come next after coronavirus, we will see only later, and how it could affect the market. If, for example, the situation with all the viruses, with vaccines would be okay, it would be stable, the situation would be stabilized, we see that the prices should increase till the end of the year, and maybe next year it should stabilize. It should stop increasing.
Any last question?
Thank you.
Well, I think we can wrap it up. I want to thank Arūnas for a very interesting and detailed overview and very nice discussion in the end. I would just like to let you all know that our next event will be on Thursday, April 15th, about gender equality, and we will inform you very soon about the speakers of that. And I would like to thank everybody for participating this morning, and hope to see you soon.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank
See you.
you. Bye-bye.
Arūnas, will the presentation be available for the members?
Arūnas, you are muted, but I saw that meeting was recorded, so maybe it's...
If somebody knows, I will send this presentation to Peter, and we could share it with you. Some more information, but it's more or less for Lithuanians. We share at our podcast, which is unfortunately only in Lithuanian language. We share our thoughts about real estate market, which you could find it in YouTube. It's called MT Tiesiogiai. There are much more information, and it's quite hard to put everything in 30 minutes in one small presentation for this time.
So Arūnas, please, when you send me the presentation, also include the link to the YouTube channel, and I will forward it to the members.
Okay, thanks.
Perfect.
Yeah, one more thanks to everybody. Yeah.
Okay, have a nice day.
Yeah, bye.
Thank you. Have a nice day, you too.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.